live on Instagram and live on Facebook, but it's going to take a second to tell people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another live with Sarah. All right, I'm going to put this down again. So you guys, this has been so much fun. I think I said the same thing yesterday, but it really has been fun doing these. So we're definitely going to keep them going. We will make you very much aware of when the next one is. But I'm so excited to introduce Sarah. You've probably seen her before in some videos. You have definitely talked to her if you have ever called us or emailed us.
Yes.
Sarah, in addition to being our resident really active cookie maker, she also handles customer service. So we love Sarah. I mean, big shout out to Sarah. So, but Sarah, how long have you been making cookies?
I've been making cookies about 6 years.
Okay. And how did you start?
I saw a Facebook tutorial actually, and I thought, I bet I could do that.
Right.
And I went out and bought
it's a
all
dangerous
the things.
thought.
Yes, I bought so many things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was ever since.
And tell the story about how you ended up working at the Cookie Countess.
So I had discovered that the Cookie Countess was local, and I was so thrilled and excited, and I made an appointment to come in and shop, and I brought my daughter Sophie with me, and we were...
Side note, we don't do that anymore, but we will have some in-store shopping events probably this summer, but that was a brief moment of time, and we're in a smaller building then, so...
And I'm very lucky
just
that
an
was happening at the time.
Yes, it worked out very well. Okay, go on.
So my daughter and I were poking around shopping, and she said something about, Mom, you should totally work here. And at the time I was working a retail job, and I said, oh my gosh, I would never leave with a paycheck. And my coworker Kathleen came in like this and said, are you looking for a new job?
Sounds like Kathleen.
It was. And I was like, and I ended up talking that day and coming back. I talked to John that day. And 3 weeks later, I left my 14-year retail job to come here, and I've loved it ever since.
Well, we love having you. So
Kathleen and Sophie are fully
responsible.
I bet they remind you of that a lot.
Sophie especially.
Sophie especially.
Angie says you guys are very cute.
Thanks. All right, so Sarah has a lot to cover, so I'm going to get out of here, but she has so many great flowers. She's going to show you how to make. So this might be a longer video than we've done before the past few days. If it ends up that way, fine. We're just going to keep going. If you have to pop out, these will be on replay once again and on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and watch them there. So take it over, Sarah.
Thank you. So we're going to make some easy florals today. They look a lot harder than they actually are, but really don't be afraid of them. The key starting place is your icing consistency. So you want your icing to be stiff enough to hold the shape of whatever flour you're making. I usually find that if you're making the Cookie Countess icing recipe, the icing as it comes right out of the mixer is the exact right consistency for me. It's smooth, but it's stiff. There's not a lot of glisten to it, so you can tell there's not a ton of water in it. So this is gonna hold its shape as I pipe it, no matter what piping tip I use. So this is gonna be my first stop, is to just bag up this pretty white icing that I've made.
So as you guys are watching, feel free to ask any questions and we will relay them to Sarah.
Oops. I'm gonna bag this up. You can use bag ties. I prefer to simply give my bag a little shake, to shake it all down to the end, and I like to twist it off. If you have a lot of extra room in your bag, it can be hard to continually pipe the florals steadily. So you might get breaks in your petals, you might get just an unsteady stream of icing, so you really want to have it nicely filled in the bag. So the first thing I thought we could make is some simple drop flowers. I love making royal icing transfers ahead because it saves me time in the end, and it also keeps me from messing up my cookie. If I have something wrong with the icing in my piping tip, I can make these ahead, save the ones that come out good, and they last almost indefinitely. You can throw them in an airtight container, you can even freeze them if you wanted, and then you can place them on your cookies as you need them later. So we'll make some drop flowers. Now for this, I use A Tico tip 131. It looks like this, in case anybody wants to see. So it's got a little star outline. I don't know if you can see on the inside, there's like a little rod that runs up the center. So this is gonna make our piping easier. Now when I make drop flowers, I make them on a sheet of parchment on a baking sheet usually. You want them to stay nice and steady as you make them. So I'm gonna do it on parchment here. You just wanna make sure you hold the parchment in place, because as you lift your icing away, the parchment wants to come with it, and we don't want that. So get some good tension on your bag, and don't be afraid to wipe this off. If it starts getting crusty, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna clean this off, so that way I get a nice clean flower every time. So with these, you want to touch the center right to your parchment, start expressing the icing, and then just give a twist. Lift straight up, and you've got a cute little flower. I could put a nonpareil in there, some nonpareils in there. I could pipe it a little more full, and it'll fill that little hole in. I could pipe a center in if I want to, but when I put it in and twist, a little more full, you could do it a little less and get more of like a little star flower. Oops, I messed up, and that's totally fine. That's why we do it on parchment.
Annette, I see your question. I was just waiting for a moment to jump in. Annette would like to know how you describe the consistency of the icing.
This is like stiff toothpaste, I would say. It's less wet than even toothpaste is, really, because we don't want these petals to droop on themselves. If you see that your petals are very wet looking, typically they're going to join together. They'll become one big petal, and they're not going to retain this nice separation that we like. Now, if you wanted to do multicolored drop flowers, it's not as easy because it does have that bar, but we can do multicolored royal icing transfers like these ones, and these use a different petal tip. So I'll show you how to do those too, but these again can be made ahead on parchment. And now these are nice and dry. I can pop them in a container, and I can use this whenever I want. So let's move on from drop flowers.
Another question here on Facebook. Melissa said, I always find that I have to squeeze so hard to get the icing to come through the small tips needed to create flowers sometimes. Is that because my icing's too thick?
It might be a little too stiff. If you're getting carpal tunnel trying to squeeze out the icing, then probably loosen it up a little bit, but really a hair at a time. You don't want to overcorrect and add too much water, because then you're just going to end up with a mess and you're going to have to try to go backwards. So if you want to do multiple colored florals like these guys, the easiest thing to do is grab a piece of saran wrap or some kind of cling wrap. I'm going to lay down whatever color I want my petal edge to be. I'm going to lay that down first. So let me put down pink, because that's what I like to do. I'm going to put down just like a little blue.
I'm excited to watch you do this.
And then on the outside, I'm going to cover this completely with whatever the main petal color will be. So I don't want to see that pink right now.
Virginia, our icing recipe is on our website, thecookieCountess.com. Click on recipes and tutorials, and you will find it there.
I'm going to jump in with one quick question, too. Kane wants to know if you have to have a dehydrator or if they can air dry, and you just let them air dry, right?
Yes.
The transfers.
Those I made those yesterday, just left them out on the counter, and they are nice and dry. All right, so now that I have my little tube of icing, I can cut one end. Now, I've already prepped my bags, so I don't need to worry about cutting my bags to put petals in, but I'm making a small flower like this, so I'm going to use an Tico tip 101. Most petal tips look something like this. This is the 101, this is a 104. You can see the difference in size. They are the same shape, so it really just depends on which size flower you're trying to make. So we're gonna make both of those, but for this I'm gonna use the little one. So,
Dawn says thank you for always pointing her to the right products when she has questions.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, so when I put my little tube of icing in, I want my pink stripe to face the narrow part of my piping tip. So I'm gonna stick this in first, it's easier. Oops. Put that right in. And then I wanna make sure that this narrow point is where my pink is. So that way that's the strip that's gonna be the outer edge.
Perfect, okay.
The center of your flower is always gonna be that wider end, and you want the nice ruffled edge of your flower to be the skinny part. So we're going to load this bag up.
Love this.
Yeah, a lot of thank yous about this video. Everyone's very excited.
Oh, good.
Yeah, got a lot of people watching.
Flowers can seem really scary, but really it's just a matter of practicing. I like to use a flower nail for this. You could do this on parchment on the table if you want to. I just think it would be a lot more difficult. So I'm just gonna put like a little squeeze of royal icing on my flower nail. We sell these in a couple of different sizes, but this is the one I grabbed because I want to make small transfers. So now I'm going to get my bag nice and tight. I like to twist the end so that I have a lot of tension on here. If my tension is wimpy and I'm trying to squeeze with my fingers more than my thumb, I'm not going to get nice petal shapes. So I'm going to start, and I always try to do, or let me get it started first to make sure. Okay, so see how the pink is coming out just on the edge?
So pretty.
All right, so we are going to give like a little squeeze and come back down to where we started. Little squeeze, come back to where we started. Aww. Same thing. And nothing in nature is even and perfect. So I try to always do odd numbers of petals. So now I've got a cute little floral. You can put little nonpareils in the center. We have this great Sweet Elizabeth sprinkle pen. It's got like a little bit of sticky on the end, so you can kind of move things where they need to be, pick them up individually. But now this can be removed from my flower nail, and I can set it to the side and wait for that to dry.
That is so pretty.
Beautiful.
Isn't that pretty? I love making these flowers. They're so simple. And again, if you mess up, you throw it away and you start over. It's really not that big a deal.
Just eat it.
Well,
Maybe not eat all the royal icing, but
I think one of the
I think my son would grab them.
yes, anytime I have leftover royal icing transfers, my kids do come along and snag them from me. So, all right. So that's a nice little royal icing transfer petal flower that you can make. Now, if you want to make a flower like this that has that covers a whole cookie, or even just a large portion of a cookie, which those are some of my favorites, we're going to use that larger petal tip. Again, it is the Atiko 104, and you're going to hold it the exact same way, okay? For this, I do want my turntable. I find that this is very helpful when I'm making this particular flower.
Tracy, we can link you to the pen after the video.
I'm gonna actually adjust my position. So again, I'm getting my bag nice and tight so that I have good tension on it. And then I'm gonna start, again, I'm gonna hold my tip about 45 degrees with the fat end hitting the cookie. And I'm just gonna start in a circle. Now, when I move the turntable, I'm not gonna have to change my angle really, because everything is moving the same way. If I was turning my cookie myself on my counter, I might change the angle and my petals just might look a little wonky, but it's still fine. Nature is wonky. So with this one's kind of a continuous move, and basically you're just making this motion, okay? So I'm gonna start and just kind of give it a little wrist flick. You can stop, start again. Again, I'm still at the same angle because I'm using my turntable. Keep going.
That is so pretty. Laura's asking the royal icing consistency. It's very stiff, and if you watch the replay in the beginning, she shows a really good example of the consistency.
You do want it to be a smooth icing though. If it's got a lot of air pockets in it, if it's very gritty, you might not get the nice smooth piping that you really want out of your flower petals. So now that I have done my bottom layer petals, I can come back and do the exact same thing on top. If I am too on top of these petals, what you'll see is the next layer of petals will kind of just be like raised up higher instead of kind of on the same plane. So we'll move in a little bit and start doing the same thing.
pretty.
And now I've got a beautiful flower. I'm gonna throw some, I've just got some little sprinkles that I can add for my center. Again, you can pipe a center if you'd like to. I'm taking the easy, lazy way out by using sprinkles, which is easier for me. But it looks glam. It looks pretty.
I love them.
And it looks more like the center of a real flower.
So pretty. That's beautiful.
You can also certainly add a little bit of extra glam by spritzing your flowers with some gold or whatever color glitter you'd like. The Sweet Sticks Vegas Gold is my absolute favorite golds. You just get such pretty sparkle out of it. So this took me hardly any time at all, but it looks very impressive. So if you're doing a whole order of florals, you can bang through these very quickly if you can master that wrist motion. So it's very simple.
Do you find the turntable is really helpful, especially for florals?
Yes, absolutely. Especially that type of floral. If I'm making these guys, again, I'm doing it on a flower nail, so it's not necessary. But if I'm making any kind of floral on a cookie like this, then yes, I definitely want to have my turntable because it makes it so that my petals stay nice and concentric.
Right.
And that says you make it look very easy.
Oh, thank you.
Karen's asking if you ever tried crusting buttercream to do this.
I'm sure you could use, but I mean,
I know Will would do that a
yeah,
lot.
people make rosettes and roses out of buttercream all the time, so I'm sure that would work.
With a big flower like that, with the stiff icing, when it dries, is it crunchy and hard?
It really depends on your icing.
Okay.
I know when I started 6 years ago, I think my icing could break a tooth. I didn't realize that at the time. So that's been just an adjustment over time of my recipe and getting something that is a little softer to the tooth.
Okay. Goslin, Christina, we do sell the turntables. We will link those after this.
These are great too because especially since I just sprayed glitter, I can take the top half right off and wash this without having to throw this bottom half in. So
Yes. You can also just search turntable right on our website and they'll come up for you.
Absolutely.
But we'll link them too.
You know what I like too is that most of these are not don't have a flooded base, which kind of I feel like it's plenty of icing. And
Absolutely.
they look really pretty just on the color of the cookie. It does look more natural.
Absolutely. Especially I love doing a rosette, something like this. So we're going to do this one next. So this uses a 1M tip. So it is a larger star tip. I'll show you right now. So this tip right here, this came out of my cake decorating kit because this is what I use for borders and things on cakes a lot, but it works beautifully to make gorgeous rosettes on a cookie as well. And to your point, Hillary, this is a lot of icing. You don't need a flooded base to be able to do it.
Which really makes it quick.
It does, exactly. You don't have to take that
Very
extra
efficient.
time. All right, let me...
So someone asked about how to keep your icing soft to bite.
So you can adjust your amount of meringue powder as needed. I think when I started, I was using a lot of meringue powder. You don't need quite as much. I also now use corn syrup in my recipe. So, and our recipe on the cookiecountess.com also does use corn syrup. So that can really help with the tooth breaking.
Yeah, this
The
is
dental
something
bills.
I think every cookier is going to want to experiment with.
Yes, for sure.
Based on the type of royal icing. I mean, meringue powder they use, maybe the environment they live in, you know, humidity makes a big difference.
Yep.
So it's definitely something you're going to want to experiment with your own personal recipe. But yeah, I've definitely cut back on the amount of meringue powder I use over the past couple of years, and the corn syrup helps.
You can also, if you over mix your icing too, that can cause your icing to be a little harder as well. So just keep an eye on your recipe and make some adjustments. To make this rosette, we start right in the middle and then make the twist around. And we really want to bring that tail so that it ends here on the side. So it's not on top. If it ends up poking up a little bit, we can always nudge it down with our thingamajiggy or our scribe. But that's the goal, is to leave this beautiful rosette shape. So I'm going to start right in the middle, bring it around nice and evenly, and then I want to kind of ease off the pressure and kind of bring it underneath. So my tail's sticking out a little bit, so I can just take my thingamajiggy and kind of nudge it into place.
Beautiful.
But again, that took 2 seconds to make, and now I'm, already done with cookie.
Love it.
I think those just come out so impressive looking too. So it's really so simple, but
They
deceptive.
really are pretty.
If
then,
you do
like,
cakes, you definitely probably are familiar with this piping tip. So it's very.
On this one, you added a little bit of leaf
Yeah,
to the
so-
side if you need a little extra embellishment.
Yeah, I just added a little, and that's a PME leaf tip. I really love their leaf tips. I think that you get the nice little point at the end, which is my favorite. Yes, Emily.
On the last design, somebody asked which side of the tip is down, but I think it was kind of just the whole tip, right?
The petal tips, so you're gonna always have your fat end down towards the bottom of the cookie. You want the tip of your flower, of the petals, to be nice and thin, and so that's where it comes from. This one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The people would like to follow you on Instagram. I don't think you have a cookie
I do
Instagram.
not have a cookie
So
Instagram.
maybe you need to make one and be a cookie influencer.
If
Right.
you're following the Cookie Countess, you're following Sarah.
Yes.
Because she makes the majority of our cookies that you see. And
This is true.
and does a lot of the videos. So even if you haven't seen her face a lot, she's definitely been there.
I do have another one that we can practice, which again looks deceptively hard, but it's just a basic sunflower cookie. And again, it's just using the right tip for this. Now, very commonly people will use chocolate sprinkles for the center. They just like pipe a small circle and dip it in chocolate sprinkles. I didn't have any chocolate sprinkles, so I used some white nonpareils and I just put them in a bag with a little bit of brown fawn dust and gave it a good shake. And I ended up with chocolate looking nonpareils.
I like it because they don't look all the same exact color, which is kind of
Yeah,
nice.
I got a
It
little
looks
bit of a
natural to
gradient.
me, yeah.
So I pre-flooded the center of the sunflower because I want it. The way that I like to make them is to have my center set, but then you pipe your petals from the outside. This way I can get really nice and close to the center without worrying that my when I pipe my center later that it's gonna deform around the edges of my piped petals. So what I'm gonna do is take my yellow icing, and again, this is a PME 52 tip. This is their leaf tip. This is the largest one we carry because I wanted those larger petals. I'm gonna get some good tension on my bag again, and I'm gonna hold it so that, here, I'll show you. If you hold it vertically, you'll see the scent that piece of metal will drag and leave your center leaf vein.
Can you hold up the tip like the way you would?
Like this.
Okay. Yeah.
Could you say the name of the tip one more time?
This is a PME 52. It's one of their leaf tips.
Thank you.
So this is a leaf tip, but we're going to use it for flower petals. So this can take a little bit of practice just to use the right amount of pressure. So if I mess up at the beginning, it's not a big deal. I can always take it off. Again, because it is a naked cookie, it's not going to leave anything behind. So I'm going to start with some pushing and then a quick pull out. Push, pull out. And then I can do that all the way around. And I love a nice bright sunflower. Just so simple. And again, this is keeping the angle of my petals the same, the fact that I'm using a turntable. So I'm not going off my center or my circle line.
That's a great point. And the turntables and the little non-slip mat she's using are available on the website. We can throw a link in the comments later.
So when I start my second line, I'm gonna just wipe off my tip so that I have a nice clean tip to work with. And then start layering. When you add petals, you wanna add them between your previous two. So if I'm gonna put a petal here, I'm not gonna stick it directly in front of it. I kinda want it to be in between so that way I get a nice layering effect. And you can do this with the rosette, with the regular petal tips too. If I'm adding another layer of petals, just go off center.
That's a great point.
Looks more natural. I could be making these petals bigger if I wanted to, but
So pretty.
now I know where this is gonna be my last row, so I can kind of fill it in as much as I want with however much pressure I want. So, but now I can get nice and close to my center. That's why I do the centers of sunflowers first. So So I can get right up close and pull away and fill all that empty space.
Everybody's saying that you make this look easy.
Thank you.
I think once you practice a little bit, it's not a hard technique. You just have to, once you get the hang of it.
And if I wanted to use that petal tip that leaf tip to make actual leaves, it's just a little, it's a little different wrist. Now this is yellow, obviously. It's just a little different wrist motion. Yeah, it's just a smaller tip. So I want to show, that's the one I just made. Okay, so I'm going to do it in yellow, but you get the idea. This is going to be like a push-pull motion, okay? So again, holding it the exact same way, push it in, pull.
So this is to make more of a leaf look.
This makes a leaf.
Yeah.
Where with the petals, we wanted that individual little swoop of a petal. But if I was putting leaves around, I would give even just a couple of zhuzhes just to, oops. That's why we hold the parchment.
That's an official word, zhuzhes.
Yeah.
What size is our sunflower cookie? 2 inches?
This one is a 2.5 inch cookie.
Okay.
This came actually from the Atiko nested round cutters.
Ooh.
So you get, I think, like 8 different cutters, and they came in a bunch of different sizes. So
yeah, that's a good set.
Can you explain what the center was just once more?
Yeah, the center. Asking. Yeah, sure, of course. I had pre-done this one. It was just royal icing, and then I had dipped it in some brown tinted nonpareils. So just those little white sprinkles, I tinted them brown. And I just
tan icing, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's mostly covered anyways, so even if you use black, the centers of sunflowers very often look black anyways, so it's really up to you.
Perfect.
So that's a pretty sunflower. Another thing you can do to really kick your florals up a notch is to add some paint embellishments. So I made this guy yesterday, so he's totally dry. If I wanted to add a little bit of gold to this to really make it look a little bit extra. This again is a Sweet Sticks product. This is their water activated palettes. This one is Art Deco, which is one of my favorites, which is why it's very used.
You said you love using these.
I love them.
So you just add water?
You just add water. I can control the opacity of the color by adding more or less water. I used these last night for a just like a paint splatter effect. I just made it a little thinner and then splattered it over a cookie.
And these are FDA approved edible.
They are edible, and they are so easy to use. They also won't pit royal icing, which some gold paints can. So if I wanted to add this just to the edge of my cookie, I can just bring it around. So pretty. You get a cute little brush with every palette too, which is the perfect size.
Kristen, we will repost this when it's over, so you can watch the whole thing and watch from the beginning. Yes.
So you can just add a little bit of an extra element to your florals if you want to.
That looks great.
I am like 97% likely to always spray glitter on things. So this isn't
glitter is never wrong.
No, you can never have enough. Especially that Sweet Sticks Vegas Gold. It's fantastic. It looks like a Twilight vampire after I come in.
A few people asking where you can buy the palette, and you can buy it on our website, cookiecountess.com. What is this one called? Art Deco?
This one's Art Deco.
So if you just search Art Deco, right in the search bar, it'll pop up.
So there is a beautiful
embellished floral. I love that. So pretty. Someone's asking, Jean is asking, when would you use the other type of leaf tip? Mine is a number 67. It's more flat.
You might have the Atiko leaf tip. It's just a different brand. I really love my Atiko leaf tips when I am piping buttercream. I personally prefer the PME ones when I'm piping royal icing. I think it just leaves that crisper point. Personally.
Thank you. And that gold was, once again?
This is out of the Sweet Sticks Art Deco water activated paint palette.
And the color was, what did you call it?
It has a
Vegas?
color on it.
Disco. No.
Oh, the gold sparkle dust.
Oh, sorry.
This is Vegas Gold.
I knew Vegas was here somewhere.
This is my favorite.
But this is the Art Deco palette.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. This is a water activated paint palette by Sweet Sticks.
We do sell them.
Colors.
Yeah, we sell them on our website.
Definitely. Those are great to have on hand in several different colorways too. They come in so handy.
Fabulous.
Any other questions? Wanna see anything
I'm all caught up with my questions. What about you?
So explain to us maybe like
yeah.
how you did this one.
Sure. So when I made all my royal icing transfers yesterday, I wanted to assemble them into a cookie. I think one of the big things that keep people from doing florals is the fear that you're going to mess up your cookie. And so if you make all these transfers, you can kind of play with them to see how they'll fit. So if I know I'm going to put a big one of these guys right here, I can kind of play around, take my florals and move them around to kind of get the design that I want it to be. So what I'll do is I'm going to go on and I'm going to pipe one of these big flowers right here, and then we'll kind of just assemble it on top so we can kind of get an idea. And we'll just add it, glue it on with royal icing.
I love these colors together.
Aren't they so pretty? All right, so let's do that peach color because I've got a good amount of it. That red also, that pink is really just a little bit extra royal red velvet, but not all the way red.
Love it.
Our royal red velvet makes a really pretty coral color if you use it in a small amount.
Right, so just don't add as much gel.
All right. So I'm going to add a flower right here. Let me get my handy dandy turntable. So we'll do it right off center, and we can build around it. So again, I'm going to keep my fat end of the tip towards the bottom on the cookie, and just start wiggling my wrist as I go around. You don't have to continue, keeping strain on your hand. If you have to adjust, feel free to stop. It just makes it look like a pedal break, which is totally fine. Got the squeakiest turntable.
It just wants to be part of the show.
It does. All right, so now I've got my bottom. I'm gonna wipe off my tip so that I start fresh with a nice clean edge. And I'll start between two breaks, so I don't want to start right where I started originally.
Okay.
A lot of love for the peach color.
I know, it's so pretty, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How did you make that one?
Oh no.
I do think that I did a little royal red and just a tiny bit of yellow. But I kept it in very pastel colors. So I started out with a white icing base with white gel added, not just plain.
And what tip is that again?
This one is the Atico 104.
104.
So we do sell these. But again, depending on, I can make this same flower with a smaller tip. The Atico 101 would do the same thing. If you see on this one, this is kind of the difference. So this was done with the smaller tip. So you can see how you just get smaller petals as opposed to this one. But you get the same basic results.
Couple questions.
Sure.
Could you make the big flowers and save them for later? I'm assuming she's referring to something like this.
You probably could. I just never have made them that big because I can pipe them directly on a cookie, and it's not typically something that I mess up as frequently as I would mess up a drop flower.
And you can scrape it off.
You can, yeah,
there's no
absolutely.
flood
Just start
underneath.
fresh. So I'm just gonna pipe a little thinner, and I'm gonna add some little numbers.
Someone else is saying that sometimes she has a problem with her icing transfers bleeding onto a white flooded cookie. Thoughts on that?
Icing. So are you putting them onto a wet flooded cookie? That could be one part of it. This cookie is completely dry, so really it's not going to transfer anything. And then maybe whatever icing you're using as your glue, if it's very wet, it could be activating the colors. Those would be my only thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And maybe use a white icing as your glue.
Yes.
As opposed to a colored icing. But yeah, if you're putting the royal icing transfer on a flooded cookie that's dry, you shouldn't have an issue.
Right. All right, so now I can kind of build my cookie. So I can play with these because they are completely dry. Just pop them on here, see what pattern I like them to be in. I like to add a little bit of a leaf around this guy first so I can kind of build a bridge. So I'm just gonna, this is the PME 51. So this is a smaller tip than I used for the sunflower.
Okay.
But again, just push it underneath the, I let this one dry a little bit too long. So if that's the case, I can tell when I'm pushing that I've got a little bit of crustiness going on from the dried icing. So just make sure you clean your tip so that everything comes out nice and smooth. All right, so I'm just gonna push it under, give a few little zhuzhes. Again, it doesn't have to be. We're gonna cover some of this, not all of it, but it gives me a base for as I start adding these guys. It'll give some background behind it and dimension. Mm-hmm. So if I want it to be kind of like that, so I don't know, do we like that? What do we think? I tend to agonize over this part, I am not gonna lie. So I will move things 100 times.
It's like redecorating your house.
No, like, what if I put my painting in the wrong place? Well, then you move it. Is it that big a deal? All right, so because these petals were wet, I was able to kind of just press that right down onto it to glue it in place, but anything else I add, I'm gonna have to glue it on with some white royal icing. This is, again, pretty stiff. Just kind of add it onto the top. You can get some overlapping if you want. We'll add this guy down here. And then I can take any of these icing transfers I made yesterday and kind of add them to in between. And maybe if I want to, again, build a little bit more with the leaves, have a little bit of background noise. You don't need a ton of royal icing to attach these either.
So pretty.
Maybe I'll give away. These guys, I actually didn't demonstrate this. This is just a tiny rose, like a swirl rose. Same concept as what we did on these big rosettes, but I just did it on royal icing as a transfer, and then I just spritzed them with glitter. So cute. Now I can come in if I want to add more leaves all around. Fabulous. And nature isn't perfect, people, so kind of fill it in wherever you want.
That's gorgeous.
So now we've got a pretty field of flowers.
So pretty.
And do as much or as little as you want.
Love it. Thanks, Sarah.
Very welcome.
Did you cover everything you wanted to cover?
I think we did. Did we cover everything you guys wanted to cover?
I'm all set on questions.
If anybody on Facebook has any more questions, pop them in now. The transfers are they soft to eat or crunchy? They're a little crunchy.
Yeah, I mean,
you
especially
can
depending on how thick they are too.
Yeah.
If they're really heavy. Like these guys are probably going to be less, this is going to be less to bite through than one of these guys for sure. But again, it really depends on your icing recipe and consistency.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, you definitely made it look easy. And I think we're going to have a lot of people wanting to try some florals after this.
Good.
Yes, Kathy's going to start working on it right away, she said.
I'm going to try too.
Awesome.
It's been a while since I did them, so I'm glad that I don't need to because you can do them for me. Okay. No, all right. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're
this
very
was
welcome.
Awesome. And I'm just going to put in a reminder that tomorrow I'll be on doing multi-piece stencils and layering of stencils. And you can continue to ask questions after we repost this. We can put you through to some links of products that she used. All the products are available at thecookiecountess.com. Yeah, this was great, Sarah. All right, well, thank you, and we will see you guys tomorrow at the same time.
Bye.